All right, so I'm going to explain my wire harness here. I've made it fairly simple. What I wanted to do was have quick disconnects. Now these might look like strange connectors to anybody who's never built a PC, but if you have, they're just PC connectors. Now I happen to sell these connectors, the pins that go inside, the special crimping tool that crimps it to here so they all connect in real nice and tight. And what I've done is, okay, so we have a negative and a positive. This is our ground for our gauges. And on the other side, we have our terminals crimped on, our ground, and our ignition source. Okay, so we have 5 gauges because the speedometer doesn't need one. Speedometer only gets lights. So here's our ground and our ignition source. It comes to our terminals here. So these will sit right in the center of the gauges, and then the wires will go out to one side and to the other. They're a little bit longer than I needed, but I'd rather be able to pull the dash out about 6 inches and be able to get to these connectors instead of having to try to fight with it, you know, real close inside the dash. So I had those connectors, and then I have the 6 16 gauge wires coming back this way, soldered together to a 12 gauge wire. Now, I only bought black 12 gauge wire because I put a red heat shrink connector on here to tell me this is the positive. Once it's connected, it'll be pretty straightforward also. Then I have a body ground here where I'm going to tap this right under the dashboard to the left-hand side behind the kick panel. And then this is going to get crimped on with a push-in style connector to go into the fuse box to the 12-volt ignition source. And that will turn our gauges on. That'll give them the ground and the ignition that they need. Then, and the reason I could have done a 24-pin connector and connected all these wires in one connector, but I wanted to be able to separate them so that if I did ever have problems, I could narrow it down to what the issue was, okay? Then I have another, pretty much the same. It's another 6-pin soldered coming to a ground terminal here. Oops, that was when I was testing. That'll connect to the same body ground location. These are for our lights, for our gauges. I'll decide if I'm going to go LED with these later or not once I see how the lighting looks. And then I did the same thing here. We have a positive. Okay, same thing. Nice connectors. They come right apart. They snap right together. They lock together. The pins lock in real tight. Again, crimped. My red I marked with red. And with red there. And then this, for the lights, I'm going to tap into the signal wire coming from the light switch, so that when I turn the parking lights on, the gauge lights will come on and I'll be able to dim them. So I may shorten this up a little bit. We'll see once I get it inside the dash. Then I have one here, because these will be sitting right in the center, because the tachometer doesn't have a light socket. It's just a terminal that lights up the tachometer. And then I'm missing one of these. One of my gauges didn't come with one, so I have one of those ordered. So I have my 2 extra wires here to solder that in place. And what I've done under here for each of these wires is I've soldered them together and then gone over them with heat shrink so that none of them will ever come apart, because I don't need to take them apart here ever. I can take them apart right here. So that wires all my lights, right? 2 more connectors disconnects all of my lights. That way I don't have to disconnect from the car ever. I don't have to be undoing my grounds or my wires. And I will have these zip tied right behind the dashboard, so the connectors are real easy to get to, real easy to get disconnect. The last one here is another 6-pin, which I'm only using 4 of actually. I'll be using the pink, yellow, green, and blue. Now these wires, these colors don't really mean anything except the pink. The pink is going to be the fuel level sender, because that's the pink wire under the dash. So what I have on this side is another 6-pin connector. And I have the pink already feeding into the pink here. And then I will splice into the fuel sender, into the big, I think it's the 19-pin. And then I will just put this on with a terminal connector. Crimp on this side, crimp that wire, because it'll disconnect from here. So these can all be hardwired in. These will run to my gauges. Fuel, volts. No, volts just gets positive and negative. So it'll be fuel, oil pressure, water temperature, and tachometer. And then the same on this side. I already have inside the car blue, green, and yellow for tachometer, oil pressure, and water temperature. I don't know which is which, but whatever it is, I'll color code it so that on this terminal, they plug in, so it goes to the right sender, and then it's all color coded, and I'll know which is which because it'll be hardwired into this terminal. All I got to do is unplug it here. I don't have to worry about unplugging these constantly from the back of the gauges and then trying to figure out what plugs into what. All I have to do is unplug this terminal and plug it back in, because the same wire will feed from one side here. So this will get connected to the fuel sender wire inside the dash, and then this, I know pink, runs to the fuel gauge. So I plug that to the signal on the fuel gauge, and same with the rest of them. So then I can disconnect everything without even thinking about it. I can just unplug it, pull the dash out. When I put it back together, plug it all back in, and I'm all set to go. So that's what I did. I found some wire harnesses and stuff like that online that were like a couple $100. But I have these terminals, the little connector pins here, which are a male and a female. I have a special crimper here. I actually sell all this stuff too, that locks those together. And you're all set. The connectors and things like that, these little black connectors that everything feeds into, the male and the female, I have all of those. So those, the pins, if you guys need some of that stuff or want to do something similar to this, let me know. This stuff can be bought at Walmart. These little blue push style clips, Walmart, any automotive store, anything like that. So, but if you want some of these connectors to make your own, again, like I said, I have 24 pin connectors. So all of this could have been one connector to unplug and plug in. But like I said, to me, troubleshooting, it's easiest for me to break it down. So if I have a ground or I have a light not coming on, I don't have to worry about this terminal. We can set that, you know, we can put that off to the side. Not thinking twice about it. My ignition and my ground for my ignition, don't have to worry about those. Those can stay off to the side. If I have a light not coming on, it's one of these wires here. So then I can trace what gauge it is to what light it is, and then I can break it down to whatever specific wire it is, and I can really easily figure out what's going on. So this was the simplest. You know, it's a little bit more time to put everything all together individually, but then in the long run, it'll be the simplest breakdown if, you know, there is problems with the gauge or anything like that. So, all right, guys, I'll probably have to put this on YouTube because the video got too long, but I'll link it up in the groups. And if you guys have any questions with how I did anything, just let me know.